I don't even like this angle. Probably better off having a face, I guess, to see than just looking at boring parts. Alright, so I have no idea what you can or can't see, so we're just gonna hope for the best. Why do I feel like somebody's watching me? And hopefully that's far back enough to where you can kind of see what's going on. Alright, so we're a good stopping point. I just want to go through, point out what some stuff is, what it does, why it is the way it is, just in case you've never boosted a car, unfamiliar with some of the terms, and sometimes asking questions on what used to be kind of awesome on forums before the Facebook pages killed it, because on forums you could search for topics and the information's still there, but you kind of lose in a Facebook page. We'll just go through some of the terms and basic stuff, A to B. If there's any questions for anybody that might watch, ask. I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. But we'll start there with the simple stuff. So, in a turbo system, we're going to follow the path of the air. So I figure I can run through all the different intercooler pipes and how they work, where they go. So first, air is obviously going to go through a filter. Because mine is outside of my bay, up in the front left corner, and I don't have an inner fender, it gets hit with rainwater, so it has a pre-filter on it, which are pretty good at being water resistant, so they don't suck up water into the system. Plus I got some shields around it and stuff too. This is just extra. And if you drift, you'll get a lot of rubber buildup, which I found out after a year, so having a pre-filter keeps all that big stuff off. So air's going to go through your filter, wherever it is, into the turbocharger. When it comes out of the turbocharger, that pipe is referred to as the hot pipe. It's not the hottest pipe in the system, but it's the hot intercooler pipe, the hottest pipe that has charge air in it. So, if I go with this, so it goes in the filter, just like I said right here, it mounts to the just sheet metal for the body. Down here, pulls nice cold air up through here. That's this guy, which I'll get to later, which is part of the catch can system. Which you'll see has a little slash cut in there. Not sure if you can see it or not, but it's got a slash cut facing towards the turbo inlet. So air through the filter, nice and clean, through the pipe, into the turbo inlet, comes out of the turbo. Now it's compressed. It's picked up a lot of heat in the process of getting charged, because when you compress stuff, it generates heat. So it'll come out of the turbo into the hot pipe. On my hot pipe, I also have my blow-off valve, which for some of the newer stuff, people do or do not run depending on a bunch of variables. Like drag cars typically won't run them because if they have to pedal, they don't want to have to refill the charge system with compressed air again, because that'll be lag when they just want to pedal it real quick for some reason. But neither here nor there. So it comes out of the turbo into the hot pipe. It's picked up heat. Goes through the hot pipe, down to the front of the car, into the intercooler, which would be right here. Pass through the intercooler, hopefully bring the temperature down, out of the intercooler, into what's referred to as the cold pipe. And here, up past my intake air temp sensor, which for speed density is something you should have. Up through the cold pipe, into the throttle body, into the motor. So you got your inlet pipe, your hot pipe, which is right out of the turbo with compressed air, through your intercooler, into your cold pipe, where hopefully the air is cooled down from the intercooler, and into the engine. So I just want to go through those three or four things. So now you are a little more familiar. If you have questions or asking somebody about something, you know the difference when someone says, oh, I'm talking about the hot pipe, the cold pipe, or anything like that. So, on to the next set of parts. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do the catch can setup on my car. So, your valve cover breather lets out any blow-by gases that go past the piston rings into the crankcase. On a lot of people, they'll just put like that little cheap filter on your valve cover. Just fine, it works. It'll let the gases out, but if you can pull a vacuum on the crankcase, it's better at getting all the blow-by gases out so they don't contaminate your oil. excuse me, if you can pull a vacuum on it, you'll actually make more power. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. Some people have been up to an exhaust system, which you can pull vacuum with. Some people will use, like if you have a dry sump system, which is a whole nother deal, you can pull vacuum on that. I run mine to the inlet side of the turbo, which if you're on the edge of your octane rating for your fuel, you might not want to do because that will lower the octane rating and possibly cause detonation. But I'm nowhere near, because I run ethanol, I'm nowhere near like causing detonation. So I can pull those gases back into the engine and burn them. It's no problem for what I'm doing because it's such low horsepower. So the way I do it is I got the vent from the valve cover. It just goes through, right here. So valve cover in here, travels down to the front of the motor, goes into one of the two fittings on the catch can, which if you can see, it's got a little bit of oil residue, and a lot of it's going to be vapor too, so it'll look kind of milky. But I got the one from the valve cover going there, and then I got the stock PVC. I drilled that out, and it's just got a dash 6 line going from it up to here too. So I got 2 vents into the can. There's 3 or 4 chambers. I can't remember how I did it. And it's got a fuel cell foam in there to help collect all the vapors and stuff, so it pulls at least the oil or the moisture out, so that doesn't go back into the motor. It should just be, you know, relatively clean air. I'm not spraying like a mist of oil back into it. Go out the other side of the catch can, right there, and then it travels down this short line back to my inlet pipe. And on the inside, which I said I'm not sure if you can see or not, got crap lighting, sorry about that. But if you look in there, you'll see a little piece of tubing with a slash cut on it. Now that little slash cut's very important, and you want to have the opening pointed towards the inlet of the turbo. So essentially when air hits like the back side of a pipe and there's a slash cut here, it's going to create a little pocket on the tail end of the, like if the air is going this way, it's going to create a little pocket back here of a low pressure area or a vacuum. So what it's doing is it's assisting, it's pulling the gases out of the crankcase. Not only is the engine pushing them out because they're going past the piston, but it's also getting assist because it's pulling a little bit of vacuum to pull those gases out of there. And just, like I said, a lot of it is, if you run some kind of vacuum on it and not just a filter where you're actually pulling them out, you tend to put less contaminants into the oil over time. And because it's still a street car, I don't like changing my oil very often. I like to get as much life as I can out of it. So if I can pull that vacuum and pull those gases and keep it from contaminating the oil, I can go longer in between oil changes and stuff like that. Is it really making any more power for me? Probably not. Is it better than me just having a filter on there and just letting them get pushed out as they build up? I think it is. But to each their own. You ask the internet, everybody has their own opinion. If I was getting close to detonating on the fuel I'm running and the amount of boost and horsepower, I probably wouldn't run it back into the motor. I'd either run it into the exhaust system, same slash cut thing with a check valve, or just to a can with some filters and just have to change the oil a little more often, so it's not too big of a deal. But so they just got this oil catch can, and that's how I at least try to pull vacuum on the bottom of the engine on the crankcase to pull blow-by gases out. My car, just radiator tubes. I just made mine out of aluminum, so because I run an SR radiator, I have that big crossover, and instead of doing that out of a big rubber hose, it's just kind of, I mean, it works. It just looks bad in my opinion a little bit. Not that this looks much better, but I just went ahead and made them out of aluminum. So this is just my lower tube. This is my upper crossover tube. Right here it has just a cheap thermo switch. So this is what controls my fans. Turn on at 190 and turn off at 180. Turn on at 190 and turn off at 180. So I have a switch to override if I need to, but otherwise if I can forget or anything or just driving around, I'll just let the switch control the relays and just turn my fans on and off as they're needed. So no particular order, any of them. Like I said earlier, this is the turbo I run. Ford Warner, EFR 6758, V-banded housing, aluminum center section. Great turbo, no problems. Spool's awesome. Makes the power I'm looking for. I mean, I got no issues with this thing whatsoever. general questions about the turbo. Nothing really special. I'm sure everybody knows what it is if you're looking at turboing your 240 or anything else for that matter. It's got V-band compressor housing, which is nice. V-band outlet, V-band inlet. It's got stainless housing on it, so no rust. You can see here is the water inlet and outlet that do run water cooling on everything I can. There's your oil inlet, my oil drain. And here you'll see I drilled and tapped 2 -3 fittings. These are because I run an electronic boost controller. So one fitting feeds the bottom side of the wastegate and it just goes directly there. The other fitting feeds it goes to the boost control solenoid and then to the top side of the gate. So the ECU controls the solenoid by adding pressure to the top of the gate to counteract the pressure on the bottom side to keep the valve from opening so you can run a higher boost than whatever the spring rate is. I think that's about it for this thing. Wastegate now, I guess, since I kind of talked about that a little bit. It's tile, 44 mil. I think it's like a MVR 44, I think is what they're called. I'm not sure what the model number is, but 44 mil. Oh, yeah, there it is. I don't know if you can see it right under that fitting. This is MVR. But no problems with it. It's a nice wastegate. I love the fact it's V-band everything. Like I said before, I hate dealing with bolts that, you know, in the exhaust system really. Anything that gets hot and cold a lot, the bolts just get nasty even if you put, you know, anti-seize and everything else on them. Best thing you could do is anti-seize and stainless everything really. So the way this is it mounts to, well, I'll go through the parts real quick. Inlet, that's the face of the valve. That's the fire ring. The seat's in there. That actually has the seat on it that the valve seals to. When you bolt it on, this will get depressed and be pretty much flush with it. So what happens is this, once you reach your boost pressure, it'll push the air into here, counteract the spring, lift the valve up, and let the exhaust gas bypass the turbocharger, go out the outlet of the wastegate into the wastegate dump pipe, which I have recirculated back into the exhaust system, because I like to keep it pretty quiet. Screamer pipes are okay, but I kind of like everything to be just calm and quiet. So you floor it, nobody even notices it. It's kind of nice. Don't really turn heads or anything, and you can hear all the actual inlet side of the system here in the turbo spool, which is fun. So yep. So go in there, out, down around the pipe, back into the exhaust. These are the 2 water fittings. So run coolant, except from the block in, out to the turbo, through the turbo, back into the motor. Turbo manifold. That's this heavy thing. This is the first tubular style manifold I've ever made, which is an interesting little project. So I've always done like log manifolds, or kind of bought cheapies and would modify and make them work, you know, fix them and brace them so they didn't crack too much. Dang, this gasket's really stuck. This what is it, Permatex makes a exhaust silicone now that can take the heat and whatnot. I put it on there just for insurance of no leaks, and definitely didn't leak. Plus I got a MLS gasket, which is nice. I think I got this from a Juku. But this is the turbo manifold. Got the flange from my buddy Glenn, who makes them and just sells them on eBay. They're cheap. It's good for, like I said, do-it-yourself projects and stuff. Bought the flange, which is just steel. I think it's a 3/8 thick, 1.5 inch primaries, just Weldels. So I'm trying to think what the ID is. The ID is actually a lot smaller than, because it's a pipe fitting. It's not 1.5 inch. Isn't really 1.5 inch. I think 1.5. The OD is 1.9. I think the ID is like 1.6 something. But all stainless. Fun to build. Took me about 30 hours if I remember correctly. Made the collector and everything out of straight. Did all the cuts to fit it. Like I said, it was gratifying right up until the end. The last hour I was doing the finish welding is when I didn't shield the outside when I was fusing the inside of the collector, and got some sugaring or carbide precipitation, which is very bad with stainless. Could lead to cracking in the long run. But so the way it works, bolts to the head, exhaust gases out, all come in through the collector into the turbo inlet, spin up the fan. They kick out the backside of the turbo. If they're not, bypassed through here through the wastegate, and they go around the turbo, then the control boost. So if they go into the inlet side of the turbo, around the turbine, spin up the fan, and then they'll kick out the backside of the turbo into my downpipe, which is just a 2.5 inch. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's crushed bit. I think I just got it from AutoZone just to get the build initially done, and down to your standard like Nissan 240 SR20 3-bolt. I think it's like a 275 or 2.5 inch flange. And just once again, like the other mating side of this, it's so close to the heads of the bolts, it's such a pain. Save yourself the headache. If you do your own work and stuff, put a V-band on it. But yeah, that's about it. It's the bung when I ran the factory O2. My wideband's further downstream. The only other thing, I pulled out the radiator. I hope you know what a radiator is. Explain the thing. It's a little heat shield I made. Just aluminum with a couple bends on it. You could do it over a bench or anything. And then just put adhesive heat tape. It's hard to see because it's still silver, but try to keep from melting the brake master cylinder reservoir and stuff like that. Keep the brakes and stuff cooler. But I think that's it. I think what, let's see, started this about 7. I'm ready, so 2.5 hours in. Jacked the car up, drained the coolant, pull all the turbo junk, pulled some of the pipes, flipped the harness back. And over the weekend I'll get all the fuel lines and stuff disconnected. I have an oil cooler, power steering cooler, I'll get those all disconnected and stuff. Probably even get the car jacked all the way up, pull the transmission out. And at that point I'll just kind of have to just wait at that point until I get my buddy's cherry picker over here to actually pull the engine out of it. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm just kind of doing this as a instructional or technical kind of video for the people that don't know, which a lot of this just might seem like common sense to a lot of people that have turbocharged cars and everything else. But I'll go through the fuel system and anything else. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm just stuttering, mumbling on. Well, it's a work weeknight, so I'm gonna take a shower, go to bed. I gotta go to work in the morning. See you guys later.